Hello, friends. This is Mr. Kyle. This week we're going to hear the story of the great family again. As we go through it this time, I want you to think about what Abram does when he finds God, when he prays. And I want you to think about maybe work you can do in your own home and places where you've found God and how you can set up something to help you remember that you found God in that place. This is the desert box. So many wonderful and important things happened in the desert that we need to know what it is like. We can't fit the whole desert in our classroom or on the screen for this call. So we have here just a little piece of the desert. The desert is a dangerous place. The wind is always blowing and the sand moves, so it's easy to get lost. There's very little water there, so you get thirsty and you can even die if you can't find water. Not much grows there, so there's not much to eat. In the daytime, the sun scorches your skin, but in the night, it's freezing cold. The wind blows the sand into your skin, so the people that live in the desert wear clothing of many layers to protect themselves from the sun and the sand. The desert is a dangerous place. You don't go into the desert unless you have to. After the flood, the creatures went out to the four corners of the earth to fill it up with life again. They often gathered along rivers. People came together in small towns and then villages and then cities. One of the most ancient and greatest of these cities was called Ur. In the city of Ur, the people believed in many gods. There was a god for every rock, every tree, and every flower. There was a god of the sky and of the ocean and of the ground. The world was alive with different gods. But there was one family in Ur who thought that all of God was in everything. They did not yet know this, but that is what they believed. Abram and Sarai were part of this family. When the time came for them to move to Haran, to a new place, they wondered if God would be there and what it would be like. They walked with their sheep, with their donkeys, and all their helpers. Even the children and the old people walked. At night, they camped in tents, and during the day, they walked along the banks of the Euphrates River. It showed them the way and gave them water to drink. It was a long, long journey. Finally, they saw people coming out from Haran and knew that they were close. And then they were there. Sometimes Abram would go out into the desert, and there he would come so close to God, and God would come so close to him that he knew what God was telling him. God told him that he needed to move again to a new place. God told him, I will make you the father of a great family. You will be blessed and you will be a blessing to others. So Abram and Sarai gathered their sheep and donkeys and helpers and set out again west toward Canaan. This time there was no river to show them the way. They came to a place near Shechem, and there Abram went up on a hill and prayed, and God was there. So he built an altar to remember the place. They came again to a place near Bethel. Abram prayed, and God was there too. God was not just here or there. All of God was everywhere. So Abram built an altar again to remember the place. And then, finally, their journey was at an end. They came to Hebron, near the oaks of Mamre. One day in Hebron, God came so close to Abram, and Abram came so close to God, that Abram knew what God was telling him. God told Abram, "I will make you the father of a great family, whose members will be more numerous than the stars in the sky or the grains of sand in the desert." Abram laughed. He and Sarai were too old to have children. What God told him sounded impossible. Still, God told them to change their names, so they did. Abram was to be called Abraham, the father of many, and Sarai was to be called Sarah. One day, 3 strangers came out of the desert to Abraham and Sarah's tent. Abraham invited them inside, and Sarah mixed 3 measures of flour for them, which was a lot. They gave them meat and bread to eat, and water and milk to drink, as was the custom. The 3 strangers told Abraham that Sarah was going to have a baby boy. Sarah heard them and laughed. She was too old. The 3 strangers went back out into the desert. And do you know what happened? Sarah had a baby boy. They laughed again, and so they named him Laughter. In their language, the name for laughter is Isaac. Isaac grew to be a man, and by this time Sarah was very old and tired and full of years. She died and was buried in a cave beneath the oaks of Mamre. Abraham was very lonely. He missed Sarah deeply, but he had one more thing he knew he needed to do. So he sent his most trusted helper back to the land of his people to find a wife for Isaac. His helper came to a well, and there a woman named Rebekah gave him water to drink and helped him give water to his animals. She was as brave as she was kind. She invited Abraham's helper into her family's house for dinner. As they were there, Abraham's helper told Rebekah and her family all about the great family. And Rebekah decided that she would like to be a part of that family too. So she went with Abraham's helper back to Hebron. Isaac was watching and saw them coming and went out to meet them. And then they were married. By now, Abraham was very old and full of years. He died and was buried next to Sarah in the caves beneath the oaks of Mamre. And then Isaac and Rebekah had children, and their children had children, and their children's children had children. This kept on happening for many years, until your grandparents had your parents, and then your parents had you. And now we are all members of that great family, whose members are more than the stars in the sky or the grains of sand in the desert. Now I wonder what work you'll do this week with this story. And I invite you on Sunday to join Pastor Alissa to do some more wondering about this story then.